everyone. My name is Melanie Braswell, and I am a fitness coach and wellness coach. And today I have Debbie Lichter here with me, and we're going to talk about food addiction. And Debbie is a health and fitness expert and also food addiction expert. And we met many years ago at Todd Durkin's mastermind. So I've known her for a while, and she just sent out this post on Facebook the other day, and I thought, oh my God, I need to interview her because I am pretty open about being a recovering fitness addict myself. And so the topic of food addiction is really interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about the difference and also the similarities of compulsion and, really, body image and things like that. So Debbie, I guess you can maybe just share for everyone a little bit about your story and where you're coming from and even what food addiction means to you.
All right, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Mel. And I just want to say, it's just so awesome to come together with you in this way and be able to really talk about this stuff, because I feel like it's not, especially in the fitness industry, it's not stuff that's talked about. And I really think it's like the dirty little secret of the fitness industry. There's two dirty little secrets. The one is that so many fitness people are in chronic pain. And then the other one is really this body image, over exercising, compulsive eating thing. And I think it's really important for us to speak into it and to speak up about it, because there's a lot of people who are suffering.
Right. Yeah. It's actually what I find just crazy to me is that fitness addiction and probably food addiction, the way you're talking about it, is actually celebrated online to some level. And to me, it's really confusing. So I'm just really, like you said, just bringing some light to it and, let people know that it's not normal. It's not healthy. Let's get back to a healthy state and really, the way it's supposed to be. That's what I'm hoping we can kind of,
and I think that a lot of people who are struggling with this stuff have a lot of shame and self-doubt anyway. And so
definitely,
I do feel like, it's important. I just relate, I relate, here I was expert in the health and fitness industry with 20 years of experience. I had just come back from living in South Africa for 3 years, working for Cosmopolitan magazine, super glamorous, creating campaigns for Estee Lauder and Tommy Hilfiger. And was just really was had a really, glamour, my life looked very glamorous and successful on the outside. I looked like the picture of health. I was running a health club. I was the face of Pilates. It was and I was living a freaking lie. I felt like such a fraud because I was so anxious all the time. I was consumed with how my body looked and what I was eating. And if I ate something, then I needed to go exercise. I needed to go burn it off. I needed to, because I just had this appetite that I couldn't stop eating. And for me, it was it was constant food thoughts. It was total anxiety. It was total shame. It was total self-doubt. And then, just feeling so out of control. And for me, all I wanted was to get in control. And so I actually got to the point, the extreme point in my, addiction career was actually turning to hard drugs to try to curb my appetite, because I just didn't know how else to control it. And I felt I felt so empty and so alone, because here I was, I was an expert in the fitness industry, in the health industry. I knew what to do. I had all the knowledge. I was even able to help other people with their fitness goals. But I couldn't make it work for me. Right. And I just felt so much shame around that, and it really, it wasn't until I got really, really honest with myself. And that in itself was a process. I didn't realize how much delusion I was living in. because my life didn't look that bad on the outside. I kind of think almost that, if someone gets like arrested, or they're like, they lose their job, or they lose the family, or they lose the house, or they're lying in a gutter, it's a little bit easier to be like, shit's not working, but
Right.
like,
Yeah, definitely.
but like my life was still kind of held together enough that I really was able to live in the delusion for a very, very long time. And so a big part of it was just getting really honest. And then, once I was willing to get honest, then I was open. And then I actually met a mentor who literally held my hand and walked me through a process, because, I had resistance come up. Like, nobody likes to look at their stuff, and nobody likes to be called out on their stuff. But, I feel like what was really great about her is that she loved me enough to not need me to like her in every moment, which meant that I could trust that she was going to be honest with me, and like that she was more committed to my recovery and transformation than she was to making me feel good about myself and placating me. You know what I mean? And so I trusted her, and I followed that. And it was remarkable to me, because I got free from food addiction. I got free from over exercising. I got free from drug addiction. I got free from codependency. Like, I got free from oh my gosh, it was just like this stuff just fell away. And so, and I now, it's, I see that it's like, it's not just me, because this formula is now something that I do, and I take my clients through, and I've seen this work for hundreds of other women. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's actually a thing here. Like, you don't have to just struggle alone, and there is a way out, and it's so great. And, so, so that's, so that's what I get to do today. Like, I work with women. Really, I love working with women entrepreneurs, all over the world, and who struggle with food addiction or body image issues, or, all that stuff. And I just get to watch as women get free. And then what happens is that then they're able to be more present in their lives,
and transform other lives,
transform other lives, and help other people. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's this incredible ripple effect that when we get empowered, we're like, all we want to do is help to empower others. And so then we get to do that. And and that's, that's kind of why I do this thing. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So would you say that that was the turning point, was the mentor? Do you think you would have recognized it without her?
I feel like I personally really needed that. For me, it was getting honest. But then even when I met up with her, I didn't even know I didn't realize how much dishonesty I was living in. I was living in lies upon lies that I didn't even realize. If somebody said, are you a dishonest person? I'd be like, no. And yet I was telling myself so many lies, and the way that I was living, and the way that I was leading a double life, and there were so many layers of all of that. I was withholding so much, and there was just so much that was going on behind the scenes in my mind that I wasn't communicating. And so I the way that I see it is that we're living our own delusions. We don't even know that they're delusions. It's just our reality. And so, I don't have any delusion anymore that I need help in helping me see where I'm in delusion, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, it reminds me of that Rumi quote, "What you seek is seeking you." And I know for me, it's like anyone that's attracted to this call right now is probably seeking help, and they may not even realize it, which I think is kind of the cool thing, because that's how it happened for me. It was I didn't really know that I needed help, but everything just so much momentum just came to this head that it just needed to be addressed. I literally couldn't go forward as a person without addressing it.
That's it. And that's really where I got to, where I was I reached such like an emotional bottom. So, I mean, yes, my life, if you looked out here, it didn't look, but I was such an emotional wreck, and I felt so overwhelmed and so anxious and so lost and so empty. And like, it was like that honesty thing of like, this isn't working. Whatever I'm doing is not working. And so it was just then that little sliver of like, okay, maybe there's another way of doing this whole deal that is different from how I'm trying to do it right now. Right. And I totally agree with you, Mel. Like if somebody's drawn to even just being in this conversation and they've like stuck around like more than 30 seconds or whatever,
right.
I mean, that's kind of how it was with me. Like I wasn't necessarily seeking someone out like overtly.
Right.
Like a deeper part of my soul was just guiding me to like where I needed to be so that I could maybe hear something that would like ring a little bell somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind and be like, yeah, you need to look into that, Yeah.
Called her into your life.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So, what do you think are some of the contributing factors to food addiction the way that you see it? What do you think is happening for these young girls, or when is it happening? How is it happening?
Gosh, that's a great question. I feel like there's so many books and analysis around that. It's interesting because it kind of comes down to, for me, like really understanding what addiction is. And I find that folks are a little I think we kind of oversimplify certain aspects of it, and then we kind of like miss like the larger perspective of it. I don't know but because I think that it's really easy to be like, oh, I do this because that one thing happened when I was 3 years old, and and it's like, here's what I've seen in like pretty much like nearly a decade of working with women all around the world who struggle with addiction and just having wanting to have a healthier relationship with food and their bodies and themselves, is that I really find that there's like this huge focus that women have. I mean, everybody really in general, but I specifically see this with women around really trying to fix their food addiction by focusing on diet and exercise, by focusing on the food, by focusing on the eating plan, by focusing on the exercise plan, by focusing on like the external, how can I get this to look a certain way? And what I find is that they're not really fully understanding what addiction is. So what is addiction? So addiction can be understood as a dis-ease, a separation from ease, separation from comfort that affects us in body, mind, and spirit. And it's really interesting because I find that the full scope of what addiction is, like body, mind, and spirit, is oftentimes lost. And so most people, they hear of food addiction or they hear of exercise, that like, and they're in the health and fitness world. And so they immediately go to, okay, I need to eat this particular way. I need to exercise this way. I've got to get a personal trainer or nutritionist. I need someone to tell me what to do. And it's about getting information. And when they just focus in on that one area, it usually, and you can probably relate to this as just as I can, it can create just as much obsession and just as much insanity, because you're now just like super, super focused on trying to control something. And then, and then there's like people who are like, okay, I'm just going to change my mindset. I'm just going to I'm going to, and I'm going to make a just huge disclaimer, because I love therapists. I love therapy. I've been to therapy. I've had the most amazing breakthroughs in therapy. I think it's awesome. And if we're just focusing on the psychological approach, for someone who's a real food addict or for someone who's a real addict in general, the psychological approach is not going to be enough. Like, and even like Carl Jung knew this. I mean, Carl Jung is quoted like talking about this in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He's like, yeah, this is above me. I mean, when it came to alcoholism. So, I mean, it's like, it's not a news flash, but it's like what I think a lot of us will do is we'll say, okay, I'm just going to use my mindset to try and kind of think it through, or I'm just going to choose not to, or I'm just going to like white knuckle it, or I'm going to, and that mindset stuff doesn't really work for someone who's really, really got addiction.
Okay.
And so what I find is that unless someone is really focused on all three areas, including the spiritual, which is really what I focus on with my client, my clients, a very, very grounded, practical approach, then they're not going to get the freedom that they want. So, where does addiction come from? I mean, I feel like it's there's a whole 6-part self-diagnostic process that I take people through so they can really learn their truth. So we don't really have time to go into all of that today. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like it is important to understand that I think it's just really oversimplifying it when we're like, oh, it's this one thing, I didn't get, so-and-so didn't hug me at this age and I did, and therefore it's like, mm-hmm. I think it's a bigger topic than that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely see it as, I think a lot of it's personality, a lot of it's, just circumstances, but then a lot of it's just exposure to, I mean, especially being in the health and fitness industry. I know you said most of your clients are female entrepreneurs that actually work in fitness, a lot like myself. Mm-hmm. I'd be like a perfect client probably. But it's just, I mean, and like you said, I can so relate to changing like the physical part of it, where like for me, I don't program myself in workouts anymore. That makes me crazy, to be that obsessed. I literally walk into the gym and I'm just like, what am I going to play with today? Like, and I have so much more fun that way and I don't obsess about it. So I can absolutely relate to that. So I think my question was just more, what do we need to be mindful of? And that's maybe something that you can dive into with your clients. But maybe you can tell us, what's a typical therapeutic approach that you would use, or maybe you wouldn't call it therapeutic approach, but what's a typical approach that you would use with someone to help them on the road to recovery?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, again, I'm like, oh gosh, how I've got like a whole freedom formula. I'm like, how do I distill this down? I think that that it starts with some really, really key, some really key things. Like, I mean, the very first thing that I do with my clients is like, it's all about getting honest, and I mean that like, it doesn't sound like this like fancy therapeutic approach. And yet it's like, it's one of the hardest things to do is to really get honest with ourselves and to really take a look at like what, like is the way that I'm doing life right now working for me, and what I find, and this was just so me as well. It's like, I just felt like I was like spinning constantly. Like I was trying to figure things out. And I was just like, my mind was like going a million miles a minute and I couldn't be present and, and like trying to control all the, like the components. And I remember like buying book after book of like of organization books and stuff. Cause I thought like, if I can just get the system, like if I can just kind of like figure out, everything kind of being out there. So the very first thing that I do with people is like, okay,
yeah,
let's get honest. Let's get connected. Like, let's get into this right now and just like be here now. Mm-hmm. And so that would, be like just an instant first step is to really have someone, just take some inventory. Like, how is the way I'm doing life working for me right now? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How is it working in my business? How is it working in my relationships? How is it working in my self-esteem? How is it working, in my finances? Like how is it working? Mm-hmm. And so that would be a huge, huge thing that I would say, yeah, Yeah.
I mean, I think you said it either here today or I heard it on another interview, but use the word exhausted. And that's something that I would say too, is like life was so exhausting, like every day. I think that's a sure tell sign that that something's not right. And then the other thing that just you had something you're going to say.
Well, go ahead, and then I'll circle back. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment on, looking outside of ourselves for the answers. And I think that that's exhausting too. I mean, I think, in my own practice of wellness coaching, I like to say, just you already have the answer. It's already inside of you. Your body already intuitively knows. You just have to be really still and be really quiet and non-judgmental. Ask questions out of curiosity rather than judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I found really helpful too. Like, even because when you're in that state, it's such like you said, shame, and it's so painful that you have to give yourself grace and let yourself feel what you need to feel. Like, you have to at least start there. So
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. And, and what I'll say to that, because I agree with you. And what I'll say to that is that what I find is that we have the answers within, but most of us are blocked from that.
Yeah.
And so it's the process of helping someone get free from what's blocking them so that they can come back to themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so and that's what I find, that's what I find the key is. Cause you're right. It's not about like, okay, it's making somebody else the expert. I think we've been running around our whole lives trying to like, oh, if I just get this, like this new program or this new thing, it's like, but what I do is I help people get free from the inside out and get free from what's blocking them from the inside out so that they trust themselves again to make healthy choices. They feel intuitively guided to what they're eating and to the way they're living and the choices that they're making. Like they're coming back to that place within themselves, and it's incredibly empowering. So, yeah, I absolutely love that. And, and that's, you and I were talking earlier. I can't remember if this was on the interview or not, but we were talking about just like really fighting for like a semblance of control. And here's the thing that I found that just took, because I feel like that's all I wanted when I was out there, when I was struggling, when I was just, insane, like, and just was, with the drill sergeant negative self-talk, trying to keep myself in line and, trying to like motivate myself by being really mean to myself. And, like all the kind of like the insane stuff that just like made so much sense at the time that I look back at and I'm like, are you serious? Like, wow. It seemed like a good idea at the time. But, what I really had to see, and this was a huge, huge, huge paradigm shifter for me, that it wasn't about gaining control. It was about learning to let go.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
And it was like an absolute game changer for me because I had the illusion that if I was going to, that gaining control meant that I would have a life of ease and that things would be figured out and it would be calmer and less chaotic, and I would have more energy and I wouldn't be so exhausted and I'd feel more on top of things and more empowered. But it worked the opposite way. Where the more I tried to control and create food rules and create, like things have got to be this way and this is how this person needs to be and this is how I need to be with this person or in this situation, or this is how my work is supposed to look, or this is how, this is how my body's supposed to look. And the more I tried to control, the more anxious and out of control I actually felt. And the more it kind of created that incongruence or that discrepancy between like where, where I really wanted to be and where I was actually showing up.
Right.
And so learning how to trust ourselves and learning how to let go, like that's a huge, huge thing that I walk my clients through, because it's like conceptually, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I've just got to let that go. But like, I don't know about you, but I can't just like let something go. Like, when you get really irritated about something and you're like, okay, I know I should just like let it go and like move on, whatever. And then it's like, yeah, but screw that person. It's like, we can't, and so it's actually a process to take someone through where they learn, they cultivate the capacity to be able to have that be a way of life, and so that's a huge, huge tool that I find is valuable, not just in, exercise and food addiction and like, this kind of stuff we're talking about, but really like for every area of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. I think we're saying the same thing, but I think of that, and this is just another way to drive the point home, is that, because I had serious control issues too. That was exactly right. But I think for me, it was like learning to be flexible and fluid. And if you look at life, it's not static. I mean, nothing in our lives is static. It's dynamic. It's constantly moving. And so, our thoughts have to be constantly moving. Like everything has to be fluid and moving. So that really helped me. And I think that, I think you're saying the same thing, is that like, you're never going to get it to sit still. It just doesn't work that way. So, that's, I think, where the anxiety comes from, is that you're trying to get all your ducks in a row and they're not going to stay still.
No, it's exhausting.
So,
I know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're getting close to time here, and maybe one last, if we can make it quick, but one last question to give people just an idea, like what might be showing up for them if, they might be suffering from food addiction, and where can they find you? What's the next step for people?
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great question. Because I feel like, my clients, the people who I speak with, and then just my own experience. I mean, the people were like, well, what is food addiction? Well, maybe I'm not a food addict. I am a food addict, because they kind of get caught up with the semantics of it. And really it's like, it's everything that encompasses the food thoughts, the constant obsession. Like, what am I going to eat? What did I just eat? What should I eat? What are they eating? What do they think about what I'm eating?
Oh my God, what do they think about what I'm eating? Oh man.
Like, did they notice what I just ate? Like, should I eat? Like, just like the insanity around the food thoughts is a huge, huge thing. I mean, when I speak with women, I'm like, okay, so what percentage of the day are you thinking about food? And they're like, oh my gosh, you know me, And then the actual behavior around food. I mean, this can change for different people, but like for me, I went through patterns of like totally restricting to totally binging, or even just within one day, like restricting during the day, or when I was really at like the peak of my, my eating and over exercising, it was like, I would be super, super calorie restrictive, but I would eat food, and then I would go to the gym and I'd burn everything off. And then I'd go home at night and I had an entire day's worth of calories that I could eat. And it was like, it was just like this, like really, really sick cycle. Or the kind of like what I also see a lot of is like I'm doing really good. Like we talk about doing good. I think anytime we're talking about doing good, I think that's probably like a little bit of a red flag, but like, but like, oh, I'm doing good. But then, like, then a day will come and I'll get a case of the, like the fuckets or whatever. And then, like the food's calling me again. And then I'm back in the binge cycle, but it's not always like that. I kind of like, I talk to people and they're kind of defensive. Like, I'm not always just binging all the time. I don't think I'm like one of your people that that really needs you, because I can do well sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, we all do well sometimes,
It's still control, right?
Yeah, it's still control. And the question I always ask is like, but do you always eventually go back to the cycle? Like, like that's kind of like one of the things that you want to look at. And yeah, like, does it interrupt how present you're able to be in your life, in your business, in your relationships? Do you feel exhausted?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you're just on this hamster wheel of just like, okay, when I get control over my food, when my body looks a certain way, then I'll be able to fill in the blank. I'll be able to have the relationship. I'll be able to live the life I want to live. I'll be able to start the business I want to start. Like how is it getting in the way for you?
Right.
And lastly, I would just say that, there's just no peace. Like it just feels like a prison,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's just so much shame because it's like, this is eating, for Christ's sake. Like, it's not even, this is just like, am I stupid? Am I lazy? Do I just not get it? Like, why is it such a problem for me? And so I think it's all of that, beating yourself up, kind of going back to the cycle, the food thoughts, it's just, I think it's the whole thing. And then it's all the ways that it shows up in the overeating, undereating, over-exercising, restricting, purging, binging, like all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you agree that, I think most people would agree about, when you hear about different types of addictions, to me, it's a coping mechanism. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol or if it's food or sex or over shopping or whatever it is, it's a coping mechanism. So I think, like you said, how much is it disrupting your life, or is it interrupting your relationships or things like that? I think, anytime we need something, something that's controlling us, or in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say that you're powerless to alcohol. Mm-hmm. So you're powerless to food or exercise or, body obsession.
Yeah, totally. And I work with women, because I've, pretty much, I tell my clients, I'm like, I've done it all. I've been it all. I've had it all. So nothing phases me. And I've got clients who are dealing with codependency issues and with alcohol and drugs and shopping and, and all the various things. Cause you're right. It's just ways that we are, that we're kind of in that pattern of dis-ease, and it's kind of like whatever we're reaching for. So right. You're right. Yeah. And thank you for asking, if people want to dive deeper, I guess. I created a quiz actually for anyone who's kind of saying, well, I want to get some more clarity on, like, am I a food addict? Like, do I have this thing? And so I just created something and I encourage anyone who's just questioning to go ahead and take the quiz. And it's just super simple. It's free from foodaddiction.com/quiz. So make sure you put the /quiz, otherwise you won't get to where you want to be. Free from foodaddiction.com/quiz. And yeah, and if somebody wants to reach out directly, and message me, feel free to, because I get it. This is like a delicate topic, and we've opened up, like quite a
yeah, definitely. I can see that. So I'll make sure to have all of your contact information with the video along with the quiz. I know we're running out of time. One thing I just want to throw out there, just to kind of plant this seed too, because we kind of touched on it, but I said I think that fitness addiction is kind of being celebrated online. It's really confusing, and I think the first reaction for people is to say, well, F it, or screw it. I'm going to go completely the other side of the spectrum, and I really want to discourage people from going that route either. We just want to come back to center. I think food addiction and exercise addiction is somewhere over here, but then a lot of people go on these binges where they don't care, and that's not what we're saying either. So I just want to clarify that that is my mission, is to help people come back to center, not one extreme or the other. Because you think about your body, it's this beautiful machine that we've been given to take care of, and so you can't disrespect it either. So
yeah,
it's a fine line.
Thank you for plugging exercise. I know I was actually thinking today as I was working out, I'm like, I really, really want one of those, those really like top level really slow, like I think it's like 1 mile per hour treadmill things, because I realized how much inspiration I get when I'm just moving my body, even if
Yeah,
it's just going for
absolutely.
a walk or something like that. Like
Right.
the inspiration comes through and I'm like, oh, it's like,
Uh-huh.
it's not even about like needing to like, oh my gosh, put myself on a hamster wheel. It's literally like when my body's moving in a healthy way, I
Right.
have so much inspiration coming through that I know that there's a like that having that healthy relationship with
Right.
body and food and exercise is absolutely where we want to be. And thank you for presencing that. So,
Yeah, thanks. Thank yeah, I hear that a lot. I actually met with someone the other day, and she said, "Yeah, and, you know, anyway, she was obsessing about her weight, and then she said, but then I just don't care, and then I gained 20 pounds, and I'm like, no, that's not what we want either, and it's not. I'm not talking about the weight gain at all. That's not my point in bringing it up. My point is just that my hope is that people find that center.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm super committed to that too. And just thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This was awesome. And I feel
Right.
like just, it's like the more we can be talking about this stuff,
Right.
the better. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to share it. So I'll definitely put all your information in there, and well, I'll see you on Facebook.
All right, awesome, Mel. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Awesome. All right, bye.